July 2, 1943, Castel Vetrono Airfield, Sicily. The Focke-Wulf 190 pilot never spotted the P-40 Warhawk diving from above until bursts of machine gun fire tore through his fuselage, sending the German aircraft spiraling toward the Sicilian countryside. First Lieutenant Charles B. Hall, a 22-year-old from Brazil, Indiana, had just achieved what German Luftwaffe commanders considered impossible. A black pilot had downed one of their elite fighters. The swastika painted on Hall's P-40L Warhawk that day would mark the first of 112 enemy aircraft destroyed by the men the Germans would reportedly call Schwarzvogelmenschen, or Black Birdmen. In Nazi Germany, racial ideology classified black people as Untermensch, subhuman, incapable of mastering technology or displaying courage in combat. The Nuremberg laws even banned marriages between Germans and people of African descent. Yet over the Mediterranean skies, that belief would soon collapse under reality, as 992 trained pilots from Tuskegee, Alabama, systematically dismantled both German aircraft and German theories of racial superiority. What Luftwaffe pilots didn't realize as they climbed to intercept American bombers in 1943 was that they were about to encounter some of the most disciplined and motivated aviators in the U.S. Army Air Forces, men who had overcome challenges their white peers never faced, who trained longer and harder, and who carried into battle not only their nation's duty but also the burden of proving an entire race's capability. The math of air combat would soon be written in Europe's skies. 15,000 combat sorties, 1,578 missions, 112 aerial victories, and a bomber escort loss rate notably lower than that of white fighter groups, results that even the most devoted Nazi ideologues could not ignore. But the path to that first victory had begun not in war, but within the struggles of segregation at home. In 1925, the U.S. Army War College issued a report titled Employment of Negro Manpower in War, concluding that, compared to the white man, he is admittedly of inferior mentality. He is inherently weak in character. This official stance claimed black soldiers lacked the intellect for technical duties and the bravery for leadership. Yet, as these beliefs persisted, individual pioneers were already disproving them. Eugene Bullard flew for France in World War I after being denied service in the U.S. Bessie Coleman earned her pilot's license in France in 1921 when no American flight school would admit her. By the 1930s, Chicago's Coffey School of Aeronautics had trained numerous black civilian pilots, proving that aviation skill transcended race. As war loomed in Europe, civil rights leaders such as Walter White of the NAACP, labor organizer A. Philip Randolph, and Judge William H. Hastie campaigned persistently for black inclusion in military aviation. Black newspapers, the Chicago Defender, the Pittsburgh Courier, and the Baltimore Afro-American, questioned the Roosevelt administration. How could America fight for democracy abroad while denying it at home? On April 3, 1939, Public Law 18 provided the first opening. Senator Harry H. Schwartz added an amendment requiring the civilian pilot training program to include at least one school designated for training black pilots. It was a reluctant concession, still segregated, but a start. When Franklin D. Roosevelt sought a third term in 1940, he needed black support from northern cities. On January 16, 1941, Secretary of War Henry L. Stimson announced the creation of the 99th Pursuit Squadron, an all-black flying unit. However, the announcement made it clear this would be an experiment, to determine whether black men could be trained as combat pilots. Captain Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. understood the immense responsibility when he led 26 pilots of the 99th Fighter Squadron to North Africa in April 1943. The son of America's first black general, Davis had endured 4 years of isolation at West Point, where no white cadet spoke to him beyond official duties. Now, he commanded men carrying not only their personal ambitions but the hopes of 13 million black Americans. The 99th arrived at Farjuna, Tunisia, attached to the 33rd Fighter Group under Colonel William W. Momeyer, who was openly skeptical of their abilities. He assigned them to routine patrol missions over the Mediterranean, keeping them away from major operations. Momeyer expected them to fail, and when immediate success didn't come, he claimed proof of his doubts. Their first combat mission came on June 2, 1943, an attack on the Italian-held island of Pantelleria. As their worn P-40 Warhawks climbed toward the target, German fighters appeared. The Tuskegee pilots maintained formation and protected their bombers. No aircraft were lost on either side, but the Germans learned one crucial fact: these men would not break under pressure. Then came July 2, 1943, the turning point. Charles Hall was flying his 8th mission, escorting B-25 Mitchell bombers attacking the Castelvetrono Airfield in Sicily. Two Focke-Wulf 190s closed in on the bombers. Hall later recounted, "I saw two Focke-Wulfs following the bombers right after the bombs dropped. I moved between them and the bombers, turned inside one, and fired a long burst. My round struck the second aircraft. It rolled left and went straight down." When Hall landed, the base erupted in celebration. Black ground crews who had endured months of insults finally had proof of their worth. Hall's kill marked the first aerial victory by a black American pilot in U.S. military history. By January 1944, after 7 months in combat, Colonel Momeyer submitted a report criticizing the 99th Squadron's aggressiveness and recommending they be removed from combat. The report reached General Henry Hap Arnold, who prepared to end the experiment. But Anzio changed everything. On January 27, 1944, the Luftwaffe launched heavy raids on Allied forces at the Anzio beachhead. 15 pilots of the 99th, flying outdated P-40s, faced superior Focke-Wulf 190s. In the ensuing battle, the 99th shot down multiple enemy aircraft. Reports range from 8 to 13 kills over 2 days. Captain Charles Hall added 2 more victories, bringing his total to 3. In just 48 hours, flying inferior planes, they had achieved more kills than in their previous 7 months of missions. A War Department study later compared the 99th's performance with other P-40 squadrons and concluded that they were equal to any white unit in combat effectiveness. The success at Anzio demonstrated that black pilots could perform with excellence in combat when given the chance. In May 1944, the 332nd Fighter Group, merging the 99th, 100th, 301st, and 302nd Fighter Squadrons, received orders that would transform them from outsiders into legends. They were assigned to the 15th Air Force as bomber escorts, tasked with flying long and dangerous missions deep into Nazi Germany. At Ramitelli Airfield on Italy's Adriatic coast, Colonel Benjamin O. Davis Jr. gathered his pilots and addressed them directly. "We cannot afford to lose bombers. Our job is not to be aces, our job is to bring those bombers home." This statement became the guiding rule for the Red Tails: stay with the bombers, no matter what. In June 1944, General Nathan Twining introduced a standardized color marking system to identify fighter groups quickly. The 332nd was assigned red, not just red noses or bands, but entire tail sections painted bright crimson. Their P-51 Mustangs, with red tails, red propeller spinners, and red nose bands, soon became unmistakable in the skies. The first bomber crews escorted by these red-tailed fighters didn't know their defenders were black. They only noticed that these pilots never abandoned their formation for easy kills. Word spread fast among bomber units. If you can get them, request the Red Tails. July 18, 1944, would challenge them like never before. Colonel Davis led 66 Mustangs to rendezvous with bombers targeting the Luftwaffe base at Memmingen, Germany. When the bombers were delayed, Davis made a critical call: to hold position in enemy territory rather than return to base. When the bombers finally arrived, so did the Luftwaffe. Nearly 100 German fighters attacked from multiple directions. The Germans had learned that overwhelming numbers might be the only way to breach the Red Tails' defense. Despite fierce resistance by the 332nd, which claimed 11 to 12 victories, 15 B-17s were lost within 20 minutes of intense combat. The group lost 3 pilots, Lieutenants Robert Hutton, Wellington Irving, and Alfred Brown. Critics pointed to the bomber losses as evidence that black pilots couldn't handle large-scale battles, but post-mission analysis told another story. The 332nd had arrived late to find the bombers already under heavy attack and had prevented far greater destruction. By March 1945, the Luftwaffe's conventional fighters could barely challenge Allied air dominance. But Germany still had one powerful weapon: the Messerschmitt Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter. With speeds over 540 miles per hour, it could outpace any propeller-driven aircraft. On March 24, 1945, the 332nd received one of its toughest missions, to escort bombers on a 1,600-mile round trip to Berlin to destroy the Daimler-Benz tank factory. Intelligence warned that Me-262s from Jägerschwader 7 would defend the area. Leading 43 P-51 Mustangs, Colonel Davis flew straight into the heart of Germany. As they neared Berlin, the largest concentration of German jets ever assembled appeared. Lieutenant Roscoe Brown, who had studied the jets' weaknesses, explained their tactic. "We knew the German jets were faster, so instead of chasing them, we turned into their blind spots." Brown shot down one Me-262, later reporting, "I pulled up at him in a 15-degree climb and fired 3 long bursts from about 2,000 feet. The pilot bailed out at around 24,500 feet. Lieutenant Earl Lane achieved what many thought impossible, destroying an Me-262 with a 2,000-yard deflection shot using the new K-14 computing gunsight. Lieutenant Charles Brantley claimed the third jet that day. In a single engagement, the Red Tails destroyed more Me-262s than most fighter groups managed during the entire war. Their performance on March 24 surpassed the total Me-262 kills of all other American units combined. For their success, the 332nd Fighter Group earned a Distinguished Unit Citation. Not every encounter ended in triumph. 32 pilots became prisoners of war, and their experiences revealed complex contrasts between Nazi ideology and battlefield reality. Lieutenant Alexander Jefferson was shot down on August 12, 1944, during his 19th mission when his P-51 was hit by flak over southern France. During interrogation, his German captor had detailed knowledge of the 332nd Fighter Group, their airfield at Ramitelli, their officers, and even Jefferson's family background in Detroit. "He knew my father was a teacher and my mother's maiden name," Jefferson recalled. "Their intelligence was astonishingly complete." At Stalag Luft III, Jefferson found himself treated as any other American officer. White POWs, often bomber crewmen, approached him to thank him for red tail protection, a level of respect rarely shown in the United States. "Here I was in a Nazi prison camp," Jefferson reflected, "being treated more equally by white Americans than I would be at home." When the war ended and Jefferson returned to the U.S., segregation resumed immediately at the port of arrival. While German pilots had acknowledged the Red Tail's skill with the nickname Schwarzvogelmännchen, Black Birdman, their most devoted admirers were the American bomber crews. For men who faced death on every mission, race meant nothing, only survival mattered. Bomber crews developed their own legends about the Red Tails, their signature wing waggles, tight formations, and loyalty to damaged bombers. To them, the Red Tails became known as the Red Tail Angels. The statistics confirmed the legend. Air Force historian Dr. Daniel Hallman found that bombers escorted by the 332nd lost only 27 aircraft to enemy fighters, compared to an average of 46 under other P-51 groups in the 15th Air Force. This superior protection rate was achieved despite the Red Tails flying some of the longest and riskiest missions of the war. By the end of World War II, the Tuskegee Airmen had built a combat record that overturned every pre-war stereotype about black military ability. Combat record: 1,578 combat missions flown. Over 15,000 sorties completed. 179 bomber escort missions, including 311 for the 15th Air Force. 112 enemy aircraft destroyed in air combat. 150 destroyed on the ground. 3 Me-262 jets shot down on March 24, 1945. 950 railcars, trucks, and vehicles destroyed. 254 locomotives and 1 Italian destroyer, TA-22 Giuseppe Missori, disabled beyond repair on June 25, 1944. Losses and decorations: 27 bombers lost under their escort, versus 46 average for other groups. 96 distinguished flying crosses. 744 air medals. 14 bronze stars. 8 purple hearts. 3 distinguished unit citations for the 99th Squadron. 1 distinguished unit citation for the 332nd Group. 66 pilots killed in action, 32 captured, and 84 lost in training or non-combat missions. The transformation from mockery to respect was not achieved through heroics alone, it was built on discipline, professionalism, and undeniable performance. It showcased the superior American training methods and technological advantages that the Red Tails executed with precision. At Tuskegee, pilots logged more flight hours than their white counterparts, 300 compared to 200. They trained tirelessly in formation flying, understanding that discipline would give them a crucial edge in combat. The washout rate at Tuskegee reached 60%, compared to 40% for white cadets, ensuring that only the most capable completed the program. Colonel Noel Parrish, the Tuskegee commander, referred to them as a super-selected group. Their aircraft progression told its own story. The 99th Squadron started with second-hand P-40 Warhawks, already outdated when they arrived in North Africa. These liquid-cooled Allison engine fighters were outperformed by German Bf-109s and FW-190s in nearly every category. Yet, Tuskegee pilots used the P-40's tight maneuvering and sturdy design to stay competitive. The introduction of P-51 Mustangs in July 1944 elevated the Red Tails to the same level as any Allied fighter group. The North American P-51D Mustang symbolized American engineering excellence. Its Packard-built Merlin engine gave it a top speed of 437 miles per hour, and its 6.50 caliber machine guns could destroy any enemy aircraft. Most importantly, its range, over 1,600 miles with drop tanks, allowed it to escort bombers deep into Germany. Behind each pilot who downed an enemy aircraft stood countless support personnel, mechanics, armorers, and crew chiefs, who kept the Red Tails airborne. Of the 16,000 Tuskegee Airmen who served, fewer than 1,000 were pilots. The rest were the unsung heroes who made every mission possible. The ground crews worked wonders with limited supplies. Ramitelli Airfield in Italy was far less developed than other American bases, and spare parts were hard to find, often arriving last to the 332nd. Even so, their aircraft readiness rates matched or surpassed white units. These crews also faced danger firsthand. Though German raids on Ramitelli were rare, they were deadly. On March 24, 1944, one such attack killed several support members. Yet, amid the chaos, others kept working, dragging planes away from burning fuel dumps. The strategic bombing campaign across Europe became the ultimate test for the Tuskegee Airmen. Each B-17 Flying Fortress cost $238,000 and carried 10 highly trained crew members. Losing even one bomber was a major setback to the entire Allied effort. Protecting bombers mattered more than racking up kills. Colonel Benjamin O. Davis Jr. understood this clearly. He instructed his pilots to resist the urge to chase German fighters. "Anyone can shoot down an enemy if they leave their post," he said. "It takes discipline to stay with the bombers when the enemy flees." The Red Tails' escort strategy evolved through experience. They developed a three-tier system: close escort weaving directly above the bombers, a mid-level group intercepting incoming fighters, and a high-cover team protecting against diving attacks. This structure demanded precise coordination and unwavering discipline. The Tuskegee Airmen fought on two fronts, against fascism abroad and racism at home. Their combat record challenged both Nazi racial ideology and American segregation, proving that excellence in aerial combat had nothing to do with skin color. While they battled the Luftwaffe overseas, they also confronted prejudice within their own country. Their victories received wide coverage in black newspapers but were often downplayed or ignored by mainstream outlets. The Pittsburgh Courier's WWII campaign, Victory Against Fascism Abroad and Racism at Home, held them up as prime examples. The contrast with German awareness was striking. By 1945, the Luftwaffe reportedly knew exactly who flew the red-tailed Mustangs, referring to them as Schwarz-Vogelmännchen, Black Birdmen. Meanwhile, many white Americans remained unaware that black pilots even existed, a result of deliberate silence from the War Department, which rarely highlighted their success. Victory in Europe did not bring equal recognition. As white units prepared for celebrations, the 332nd faced uncertainty about their future. The Army Air Forces planned to keep segregation intact despite clear evidence of its failure. For decades after the war, the achievements of the Tuskegee Airmen remained largely forgotten by mainstream America. Many veterans carried this burden quietly. Lee Archer, who achieved 4 aerial victories, later became a business executive but seldom spoke of his service. "Nobody believed me anyway," he said. "A black fighter pilot must be lying." In 1948, President Harry Truman signed Executive Order 9981, desegregating the U.S. military, a decision influenced by the Tuskegee Airmen's record. Benjamin Davis, who had led the Red Tails over Berlin, became the first black general in the U.S. Air Force in 1954. Recognition was slow but eventually came. In 2007, President George W. Bush awarded the Congressional Gold Medal to the Tuskegee Airmen. Only about 300 original pilots lived to attend, many waiting more than 6 decades for acknowledgement. Their transformation from ridicule to respect wasn't legend, it was documented history. The statistics speak for themselves: 112 confirmed aerial victories against the Luftwaffe, 3 Mi-262 jet fighters destroyed in one mission, 150 enemy aircraft destroyed on the ground, and only 27 bombers lost compared to an average of 46 in other groups. Pilots of the 332nd earned 96 Distinguished Flying Crosses. The so-called Schwartz-Vogel mention proved that prejudice collapses when confronted with undeniable skill. Every German plane destroyed, every bomber protected, and every mission completed strengthened the case that a pilot's color had nothing to do with his capability. Roscoe Brown, who shot down a German jet over Berlin, summarized it best: "We didn't just fight the Germans. We fought ignorance, prejudice, and hatred, and we won all 3. The Tuskegee Airmen didn't just win battles, they changed history. They fought 3 wars at once, defeating the Luftwaffe in combat, disproving Nazi racial theories through excellence, and helping dismantle American segregation through courage and performance." When given the chance, the Tuskegee Airmen rose above every barrier, turning mockery into respect, bias into acceptance, and enemies into witnesses of their remarkable legacy.